Howdy, boys and girls. It is truly the most wonderful week of the year because it is not only week 13 and show 14, but it is, I'm going to try to say it because Rivalry week.
Woohoo! Rivalry week.
I was close. I was close. We were sitting after the game on Sunday morning. I was back in Columbus at my folks' house, and we were sitting on the kitchen table. And my dad can't say Rivalry week. It's just I think this is a universal problem that speech therapists across the United States should take the time to address every single November. Right?
I would totally agree, but it's so much fun to say. It's so much fun. We should just call it Elmer Fudd week. Really?
Yes, there it is.
You know, it's Elmer Fudd week.
Show title, show art, they're done. Thanks for watching, guys.
See you next week.
We'll see you next week.
Turkey.
No, that's perfect. That is perfect. Because that is, it just sort of lapses into that naturally. Every time you try to say Rivalry week, if you say it slowly,
yes.
Then maybe you're okay. But if you're excited about Rivalry, right? If you're excited about this week, like I am,
there you go.
Then it becomes a more difficult thing to get out of your mouth. Before we look ahead, as we do, we will take a look back at the week that was. Carla, was there a thing that made an impression upon you last weekend?
During Baked Goods Week. I think it's appropriate that we have Baked Goods Weekend heading into Thanksgiving week. That's the one appropriate thing, is because it's just preparing us, A, to bake, because there's time to bake when it's Baked Goods Weekend, because there's no good football to watch.
Not much, no.
And B because it's all we do this week is eat, right? Which is why we're taping the show on Monday night, because we both have big plans for eating this week.
The eating and traveling and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Over the river and through the woods we go. But so what one thing stood out? Well, gosh, that was real hard to find something that stood out last week, because the football was, let's just be honest, it was not all that great. But the one thing there were two games that kind of caught my attention, and a couple things that, I'll be perfectly honest, I didn't watch a lot of football this weekend either. So, scrolling through my phone, trying to keep tabs of what was going on, making sure, we didn't get the ridiculous upset. Other than the fact that, Navy almost beat Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. And so I was right about the triple option thing.
You were absolutely right about that game.
And that was a heck of a game.
Yep.
But the thing that really stood out for me last week is, oh my gosh, other than Clemson and Miami, the ACC is a hot mess. The things that caught my attention. NC State was like the darling of the college football playoff, 3-4 weeks ago, something like that, when everyone's like, why aren't you on the NC State bandwagon? Well, NC State has now lost 3 of the last 4, and they lost this weekend to Wake Forest. So you have that happening. And then Georgia Tech, who beat Virginia Tech, and I mentioned that last week because of the triple option thing, went on the road and lost to Duke.
Yes.
So, pretty much other than the 2 top teams, they're going to play each other next weekend in the title game. The ACC is kind of a hot mess, and that was kind of the big thing that stood out. And also, I'd like to, just because they're my darlings, Kansas State, great win.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a really great win, and you kind of wonder what happened to Oklahoma State in that game. But I've been waiting for this out of Kansas State all season. That you could tell they were so close in so many games, and hanging in there 6.7 points, just right around where they could have been in striking distance and just couldn't finish the deal. They finished the deal in Stillwater, which is such a huge win for them, and it made them bowl eligible. So yeah, those were kind of the 2 things that stood out for me. What stood out for you?
Number one, it was nice having the internet connection in Ohio Stadium is awful. It is awful, but I had just enough reception to know that I would stay dry if I left 3 minutes before halftime. And that was the case. By the time I got back to my car and was out, was in line to get out of the parking garage, which did not take long, although there were a fair amount of people leaving then. Just after I got out of the garage, it started to pour. So nice. I am pleased with my timing and the incremental upgrades that Ohio State has made for the data service in the stadium. It's helped out a little bit. The bigger thing that I want to talk about is Baker Mayfield. Hi, Baker. We see you, Baker Mayfield. I'm sure NFL GM see you also, and perhaps even Heisman Trophy voters. I would say Baker Mayfield is still the favorite for the Heisman Trophy, and I don't think. I mean, Johnny Manziel won one, so I'm not sure that this is going to be a thing that the crotch grabbing and the cursing and the other fun stuff that he did. That's not. I don't think that's something that's going to disqualify him from that award. Although maybe it should. I don't know. It's just so ridiculous. And more ridiculous. It is ridiculous that Kansas players would pull a stunt like that at the beginning of the game. What you have to do as a heavy favorite, as a player who's in the national spotlight, as the front runner for the Heisman Trophy, is go, we're just going to go kick your asses anyway.
Right.
You don't have to make a big show of it. You have to be the bigger person and go out and speak your message on the field. You don't need to do the crotch grabbing or the cursing or the planting of the flag on the opponent's 50-yard line. That stuff is that's like pee-wee high school stuff. Don't do it. You don't need to. And as I said, could character issues hurt him in the draft? Maybe a little bit. Maybe cost him a little money. Ultimately, probably not a big deal. But it's distressing and distasteful. And I think we've learned a lot about Baker Mayfield this year, both in terms of the player he can be, because he's had a spectacular season, but also in terms of the person he is. And repeated apologies. Maybe one incident and you're like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that. And you're like, okay. And then you go and do something even dumber. And it's like, oh, okay, we see what's going on here. So,
right.
Whatever you want to do, Baker.
I was gonna say, we're going to see a lot this weekend about not only the character of Baker Mayfield, but the character of Lincoln Riley. Is going to come out because, today it was announced that, Baker's not starting against West Virginia, not going to be a team captain, but will play at some point. This is kind of a big game for Oklahoma. It's not part of rivalry week because it's not really a traditional rivalry, but going on the road in Morgantown,
not an easy thing.
Not an easy thing to do. And so we're going to see how much this suspension, what kind of weight it plays. If Lincoln Riley is really being legit and saying, no, really, we're suspending him for part of the, they have said he will play, but how long is that leash, right? How long is Lincoln going to let him sit on the bench?
I would love to see a half. I would love to see a half on the bench.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to see the first half. It's going to be real interesting if West Virginia comes out firing and they're up 14 in the first quarter. Does he pull does he pull him off the bench and throw him into the game? Gosh, I hope not. I hope he has the head as a head coach to stick to his guns. So when he says, no, really, this is not what we think, this is not the way we behave, you're on the bench, that earns his players respect. This is his first time he's had to do this as a head coach. It's going to be real interesting in Morgantown to watch all that go down.
And easily the most visible player on his roster. He could set a real example. I knew this, or he could let his players know that it's you sort of wink and it's like, well, we're going to sit you for a series and it's not really a big deal. So
right.
That will be an interesting thing to see on Saturday. We're going to jump right in to Rivalry Week.
We are.
I did it. I think.
Well done. That was good.
Some of these are classic rivalries. Some of these are more current modern day rivalries. One of them anyway. But these are all games that are important and should be good ones and potentially should have an impact on the playoff. And we start. I swear to God, I only did this because it's in chronological order. The Ohio State Buckeyes, number 9 in last week's college football playoff rankings. At number 24, Michigan. Ohio State is favored by 11.5. Let me stress one thing before we go further. We're using last week's rankings because we're taping earlier in the week, and we are using very early in the week lines. So those could change a bunch by Saturday. Yeah. So with that stipulation, my Buckeyes at them stinking Wolverines. Carla, what do you think?
So this is a Michigan offense that's still really it's a week Michigan 13 offense? And we're still having the same conversation, right?
There's Michigan offense?
Right. Yeah. Is that a thing this year? Apparently not. It's still completely in disarray. John O'Korn, the name that we loved at the beginning of the year, got benched last weekend in favor of Brandon Peters against Wisconsin, and then Brandon Peters got hit real hard and carted off the field, and is in concussion protocol. See, Wivalwy week. It's a thing. So he's in concussion protocol, and again, it's Monday, so nobody really knows for sure whether or not he's going to be cleared to play this week, which means that John O'Corn, who was mediocre at best when he came in, and you have to wonder how much of that was his mentality after being benched, and how much of that is just his ability as a quarterback, which, is this season has been mediocre at best. I mean, he's done what he's had to do in certain games, but against competition and tight games, or games that really, against higher ranked teams, he's not performed well. Wilton Speight is apparently still thrown back into the conversation because suddenly he's been cleared to practice, but he hasn't been cleared for contact. So whether that happens between now and Saturday will play a big factor in this game, but odds are likely that John O'Corn is starting. That's not great news for that Michigan offense. I think the Michigan defense has the potential to slow down Ohio State, but there's just no way that offense is going to be able to score to keep up. So, it might be a sluggish start just as the two teams kind of feel each other out, but I don't know. That Michigan offense, you have to be able to score points against your Buckeyes. We've found that out throughout the season. I like Ohio State in this game. I think Michigan might keep it a little closer just to keep it interesting early on, but it's a rivalry game. I expect them to play up. I expect the defense to play well. I just think the Ohio State offense is going to be able to overcome it.
Okay. I should have looked at the over-under for this game. I would imagine it's sort of low, and that's okay. I mean, I think even if Ohio State doesn't have to score a lot in this game, I don't think to win fairly comfortably. I mean, you mentioned Brandon Peters is in concussion protocol. Wilton Speight, he was cleared. He practiced. He had non-contact practice last week. So there's speculation that he could return to full contact this week. And then does he play since he hasn't played since midseason? Don't know. John O'Corn got benched. Who knows? Is the actual best quarterback in Ann Arbor really Jim Harbaugh? And does he have any eligibility left? Is that a possibility? And would that even matter? I don't think it actually does, because none of these quarterbacks, even if it's Jimmy Harbaugh, doesn't have shown any kind of consistency to run a productive offense. So, if the over under for this game is 30 points, Ohio State's going to score 24 of those, and move on comfortably to the Big Ten championship game next week. So, go Bucks for that one. Next up, number 1, Alabama. At number 6, Auburn. Bama is favored by 4. This might be the most interesting game of the weekend. What do you think?
I have not been this excited for an Iron Bowl in a long time, because of the weight that this game carries. With the SEC West riding on this game. Winner of this game goes to Atlanta to face Georgia. And here's the interesting thing. I'll give credit where credit is due here. Alex Scarborough of ESPN posted a little bit earlier today that 7 out of the last 8 years, the winner of the Iron Bowl has gone on to play for a national championship. So there's a lot riding on this game. And gosh, you have to really like where Auburn is sitting heading into this game. They've got a lot of momentum on their side. Their 2 losses are quality losses. They lost to Clemson and LSU, and they steamrolled Georgia 2 weeks ago. And here they are playing at home again, and really favorable environment. Bama essentially coming off of bye. Thanks, Mercer. But a key thing for Bama here is I say they're essentially coming off of a bye because they were able to rest a bunch of players that were kind of dinged up, including Minkah Fitzpatrick, who had a hammy, and is now cleared to play and should play at least as of Monday. As long as he doesn't tweak something during practice this week, he will play, and that's huge. Where I think the key is in this game is the Alabama defensive front against Auburn's Kerryon Johnson. Because if you haven't been paying attention to Auburn's run game, it's a bit ridiculous. And Johnson's been averaging 130 yards per game. including 156 against LSU in a loss.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And 167 against Georgia, which was a big win for them. But this is that same Georgia defense that held Josh Adams to 53 yards when they played Notre Dame. So
that's legit run defense. That's a big deal.
So no joke here. So I think that's where the game is going to be won or lost, is whether the Bama defensive front is able to slow down that Auburn run game. Alabama needed that last-minute drive to win against Mississippi State. They feel like they're a little bit off right now. I really, really, really want to pick Auburn to win this game because I think they've got the momentum. They're playing at home. I really think they can win this game. The reason why I would pick Alabama to win this game is selfish. A, it's a gut feeling that Alabama doesn't lose this game because Alabama is Alabama. And B, we've already seen Auburn, Georgia.
Yeah. I
want to see Georgia, Alabama. I want to see Georgia going up against that Alabama defense to help sort out the playoff. Like, is Georgia legit? They got crushed by Auburn. Would they hang in with Alabama? I don't know. But I'd like to see it happen. So for selfish purposes, I kind of am rooting a little bit for Alabama, but at the same time, is it okay for me to just not to pick?
No, you can't do that. Sorry.
Okay, I want Alabama to win this game, but I think all of everything that I'm looking at here, unless Alabama forces a bunch of turnovers, and that's a key difference between these two teams. Alabama's number 6 in turnover margin. Auburn's 45th. And that's big. So if Alabama could force a couple turnovers, Alabama wins. Otherwise, I like Auburn at home. Yeah.
For slightly different reasons, are in very similar places on this game. To back up a second, of course, fan Uncle Crappy is looking at this weekend and subsequent weeks as how do my Buckeyes get into the Final Four?
Yeah.
And it's possible. It's possible. But what really, I think the biggest thing that need to happen, Alabama and Miami both need to win out. They're whatever regular season games they have left, their conference games, they will be cemented number 1 and 2. That sort of works out just about everything that could happen in between those spots and where Ohio State sits now. And I think if those things happen, then Buckeyes got a pretty good shot of making it in the Final Four, even with 2 losses. Detached journalist Crappy, however, is concerned about this game in particular. And this was another. You mentioned you found your ESPN stat. I think this came from ESPN earlier today. As a head coach at both Alabama and LSU, Nick Saban has never beaten an Auburn team that's won 9 games.
Wow.
Coming into that contest, and history is history and all that stuff, but it does speak, especially at Alabama. It speaks to the nature of the rivalry. It speaks to what happens when Auburn is a legitimate competitor. That weird things can happen. I have to think back too long ago to the field goal return. It happens. It happens, and. Fan me really, really wants Alabama to win this for a different reason than you do, but trust me, I'm right there. I want the Crimson Tide to win this game. I don't think they do. I think, I would be really happy if this was in Tuscaloosa. But with the home game for Auburn, this really feels like an Auburn win, and I hope I'm wrong. But we will see how that goes. Next up, we have number 2 Clemson at South Carolina. Clemson is favored by 14. Carla, will there be any Clemsoning this week?
I really want to say yes, but I don't think so. Okay. I don't. Clemson's offense is putting up huge numbers. We've known that all season. And here's South Carolina's defense gives up a lot of yards. But the interesting thing is they give up a lot of yards, but they don't give up a lot of points. They're able to recover pretty nicely, once they get into the red zone. They're only giving up just shy of 20 points a game. That's really actually pretty good.
Yep.
but they're allowing like 336 or 366 yards per game. That's crazy. I think South Carolina's losses are legitimate. I mean, they're against Kentucky, Texas A&M, and Georgia. Do they stand a shot of keeping this game close? Sure, they do. As long as they can keep Clemson out of the end zone. And I'm not sure. They can do that. And here's a shocker: a Will Muschamp team that doesn't put up a ton of points. Stop me if you've heard that before.
Wait.
Yeah, right. Even if they can slow down Clemson, I just don't think the South Carolina offense can keep up. That's, it might be interesting in the first half, but I just think Clemson's just going to have too much offense that South Carolina's just not going to be able to score enough points. So I think Clemson wins this game. It might not be comfortable until the second half, but Tigers win.
Yes, this is a huge rivalry game. Yes, Clemson has to go on the road and play in said huge rivalry game. And yes, South Carolina is having a solid season. 8-3. You mentioned the defense is giving up just fewer than 20 points a game. The difficulty is that they're only scoring 25 a game, which is only good for 92nd in the country. Clemson's going to have it's a rivalry game, and the Gamecocks will play them tough. But Clemson's going to score, and there's not going to be any Clemsoning this week. Tigers going to win that one. Next up, we have Notre Dame, number 9, at number 22, Stanford. Notre Dame is favored by a teeny tiny 2.5 points. What do you think about this one?
Talk about two teams that are like statistically even heading into this game.
Yeah, everything except for ranking, which makes this kind of interesting. But what do you think?
Yeah, and I'm going to steal AJ's line from last week about how Notre Dame was going to have to try to stop the Navy triple option, which they struggled with, and then the very next week fly across the country and try to contain Bryce Love.
Yeah,
right. And that's the situation that they're sitting in. And after last week's performance against Navy, you're scratching your head a little bit here as to whether or not they're actually going to be able to contain Bryce Love, who, okay, here's the ridiculous stat of the year, is averaging 172 yards per game on the ground this season. Mm-hmm. Nearly 200 yards per game. The key to beating Stanford is simply bottling up Bryce Love. That's all you have to do. Bottle him up, and you've got a good shot of winning. Because that's what Wazoo did. Wazoo was able to bottle him up, and they won that game. True. Stanford is 61st in total defense, so this could get pointsy. I see I'm stealing off. See, AJ, you've taught me well, friend. That's this game could get pointsy. Notre Dame is 52nd in rush defense, which doesn't bode well going against Bryce Love. So I'm going to steal your logic in this one.
Okay.
Stanford has done everything that we didn't expect it to do this year, right? We predict them to lose, they win. We predict them to win, they lose. So Notre Dame should probably win this game, which means Stanford will.
Okay. And I'm good with that. We're going to go back to my personal dichotomy and make it even more specific versus rather than just plain fan crappy. We'll get this is paranoid fan crappy. Paranoid fan crappy does not want to end the season with his team having 2 losses and Notre Dame having 2 losses. And I know that the conventional wisdom is that because they don't have a title game, Notre Dame is at a disadvantage in that situation. And I think that's probably true. But still, I would rather that not happen. And fortunately for paranoid fan crappy, journalist fan crappy looks at this matchup kind of in a way that's similar to what you have done. Stanford's is a better team than 22nd or whatever they're going to be ranked when the playoff rankings come out later this week. And to play on the road there is a legit tough game. They have one of the best running backs in the country. Notre Dame isn't especially good with that facet of defense in a Wivalwy week game. I hope, number one, that's the biggest thing. I hope this is a win for Stanford, but I think it could be, and I think strongly enough that I'm going to go ahead and make that pick as well. Go tree. We love the tree. Finally, we have the Apple Bowl. Number 14, Washington State at number 18, Washington. Your Huskies are favored by 10 points, even though they're not ranked as highly as the Cougars are. What do you think about this one?
This is leave it to the Pac-12, right? To have a rivalry game like this that looks like on paper that, you know, it could be one of the more entertaining games of the day, and I think it really could be. But Washington's been statistically eliminated from playing for a Pac-12 North title. So even though it looks like these two teams are even, because Stanford beat Cal last week, that eliminated Washington. Yes. So the only team with a shot of moving on to the Pac-12 title game here is Wazoo, of all teams. So Wazoo has everything to play for in this game. Mm-hmm. You know, they win, they play for a title. They got thumped at home last year in an Apple Cup, where actually the winner of the game did go to the Pac-12 title game. So there was everything on the line last year too in this game for both teams, and they just got absolutely destroyed at home by Washington. So you've got to think, okay, they have a chance to win the Pac-12 North title and go play USC. They got thumped at home last year. They want nothing more than to go to Washington and win this game. Here's what makes me nervous about that for Wazoo. Okay. Wazoo is incredibly one-dimensional. I don't know if you know anything about Mike Leach, but, you know, fun gun. They throw the ball like crazy.
Yeah.
And they're going up against the 11th best pass defense in the country. Mm-hmm. Playing at home and against a team that made the playoff last year. So Jake Browning, their quarterback, has experience in these types of games and has the mettle to be able to compose his team. Even though they can't play for a title here, they could spoil a title, mm-hmm. which at home, which they would probably love to do.
Oh, yeah.
And if Wazoo loses this game, guess who goes to the Pac-12 title game?
Who?
Stanford.
So Stanford has something else to play for.
Well, they don't, because it was a non-conference game. But but again, Wazoo has everything to play for. Stanford has to just sit and watch. But if we're going back to the whole philosophy of Stanford doing things that they're not supposed to do,
yes,
Stanford's going to end up in the Pac-12 title game here, because I think Washington wins at home.
Okay.
And that plays well for my scenario. I really, really want nothing more than a Washington State-Penn State bowl game. Because
that'd be fun.
That would be really entertaining. But you know what would be even more entertaining than the game? The pregame press conferences with Mike Leach.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yes.
That would be okay.
Yep.
Oh, we would like that a lot.
We get two head coaches with lots of sound bites. Yeah, sign me up for that bowl game. I don't know how it could possibly happen, but I think a 3-loss Washington State team has a better shot of playing a 2-loss Penn State team in a bowl game somehow.
I think that could work. That could work.
I'm in.
And you know, the bowl games would love to set up a traditional, semi-traditional Pac-10, Pac-12, Big Ten kind of thing. So that would be cool. That would be I would enjoy that a lot. As far as what I think about this game, State's defense, actually, I mean, we're talking about Mike Leach here, but it's not bad. It is a 40th nation in points allowed, 22 and change. But the difficult thing is that on the road, this is a tough spot to want to get into a shootout. And Washington not only scores more than the Cougars, 21st in scoring per game versus 38th. Washington also plays defense. You mentioned the passing defense for the Huskies. I look at this. This really does feel pretty solidly like a win for the home team for the Huskies, and you know, and then maybe you get that Washington State bowl game that you want to get after that. Regardless of what happens, I know we're all going to enjoy Rivalry Week.
Yes, I will be in the beautiful state of Florida, going to a game that we didn't actually even talk about, and how crazy is college football this year that we didn't talk about Florida State, Florida.
That actually is insane. It is. That would not be on our radar for the Rivalry Week show. But yeah, I mean, it's just that's how it went this year.
Yeah. So I might be in the swamp. We're still trying to figure that out. But watch the Twitter feed. You'll know if I'm in the swamp on Saturday. Otherwise, we'll definitely be watching the game. So it'll be a good day of college football regardless.
Nice. I will be watching one game in particular and working in as many others as I can. And then we'll see what happens when we come back next weekend.
Yes.
For the much easier to say championship week. Every week should be championship week, if for no other reason than it's much easier to pronounce. Carla, thank you once again.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and enjoy the turkey and the leftovers and Wivalwy week.
Wivalwy week and turkey and thanks leftovers and Thanksgiving. Happy holiday, everybody, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks.